Welcome to Kill the Clock. It is November 1st, and we're here to talk about NBA extensions that just happened. There was a lot of money being spent. We're going to help you decide if it was well spent or not. I'm here with NBA expert Anhad Singh. How's it going, Anhad?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. I'm really glad we're actually talking about this subject because a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes is something that many casual fans don't pay attention to, and it really goes to show the importance of what a general manager does. Getting the right players for the right amount of money, structuring the contracts. Figuring out the length of a contract, the optimal amount of money that these players should get. It really helps define your team and the franchise, and it could have really long lasting impacts on how things proceed in the future. So yeah, let's get rolling.
Yeah, before we go into the first contract, I just wanted to say that the salary cap limit is at 71 million or 72, 71.75. So going over that means that there will be a penalty. So that's just to put it into perspective about um, how much each contract is worth. So keep that in mind when we talk about how much each player is getting per year. So let's start with the first player that got the most money this year, and that was Klay Thompson. He got 70 million for 4 years. That's the max contract, max amount of money you could get, and about 17.5 per year. Anha, do you think he deserves that? Do you think he deserves more or less?
Before I answer this question, I want to make one comment. I feel that the shooting guard position has actually relatively been scarce over the last few years. Finding a very, very good elite shooting guard is important and something that doesn't happen that often. Having said that, I do feel, just like a lot of people out there, that Klay Thompson is one of the best two-way two guard, both on the offensive and defensive end. This guy has shown tremendous amounts of capabilities and production. I was watching this game. I think it was yesterday, and Mark Jackson was the commentator, and he said, again, Mark Jackson can be a bit biased because he coached this guy, but he said that Klay Thompson is the best two-way two guard on this planet right now. Is this money fair or not? I think it is fair. Just because Golden State Warriors feel that this is the guy who's their future. Him and Steph Curry, the Splash Brothers, that's clearly how they see their whole franchise going. They have a bargain in Steph Curry. What is he getting? 10, 12, 11 point some $1 million. So I have no problem with this. One of the repercussions of this is they're gonna go over the salary cap next year, and probably that means Harrison Barnes might not get signed in the future.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. So I would also think that I think that it's a fair contract too. It kind of sucks because yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to resign Harrison Barnes, but yeah, not much else to say about this contract. He's well worth the money there. One thing I want to point out is that this means that Maurice Spates might not get re-signed next year. He has a team option, and same with Nedovic. That would be 5 million off the books. With 17 on the books with this contract, it would mean there would be at about 75, but we're not completely sure how the contract is structured, so that's just a rough estimate. But anyways, yeah, a fair contract nonetheless. Let's move on to the other contracts. We have a lot of them to talk about. We're gonna start with Kemba Walker, and that was 48 million over 4 years, so that's 12 million per year. He had a great game coming out in his Hornets debut, I would say, and he had a game tying 3 pointer and then a game winning shot in overtime. So Anhud, fair, not fair? Does he deserve more, less? Your thoughts?
I think Kemba Walker is a very good point guard. It's 4 years, 48. That means roughly. I don't know how the contract's structured, but it's around 12 million a year. Right now, the Hornets are at 65 million, and next year they were going to be at 52. So with this added 12 million per year, they're going to be under the limit. But does Kemba Walker deserve this contract? I actually have no problems with this. I think 12 million per year is very good for a point guard of his caliber, and I'm actually excited to see the direction this whole franchise goes. I actually expect them to make the playoffs too this year.
Yeah, with Lance there, I do expect him to make the playoffs. That being said, I'm not completely sold on this contract. I do think he's worth at least 10 million per year, but I'm not sure if he's worth uh, 8 million more than what he's gonna get. Just because I think Ty Lawson's getting 12 million per year also, and I'd rather have Ty for that much money. I mean, I have no problem with this contract in the end. I do think it should be a little bit less.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is that if you have a really good point guard like Kemba Walker and you have decent amount of cap space, it's just good to lock him down uh, before somebody else comes and gets him away, right?
Yeah, no doubt. But let's just play this game for the sake of the show. Does he deserve more, less, or what do you think?
I think it's fair.
You think it's fair? I'm going to say slightly less, but I have no issue with it in the long run because you do have to pay your most talented players a little bit more money to keep them. So let's go on to the next contract. We have Ricky Rubio at 56 million over 4 years. That's 14 per year about, and I'm going to say that he did not deserve this much money. I think you would disagree, but I'm not sure. This is just because Eric Bledsoe got this much money in his long awaited contract over summer, and I would rather have Eric Bledsoe for that much money.
You know, players might just love me because this is another contract that I think is fair. There are three things that I'm gonna say in general about point guards: their shooting, their passing, and their defense. Out of these three, Ricky Rubio is at an elite level in two, which is passing and his defense. Of a point guard who's 6'5" and who's going to be playing against guys like CP3, Rondo, D Rose, and all these guys. When you have such a good defender defending these elite point guards, the effect, the overall production is actually enhanced because of all the defensive work that this guy's putting in. Minnesota Timberwolves have a young roster now with the recent trades and draft pick. So keeping a guy who's been around for a while is definitely not a bad idea. And it's shooting something that I expect him to work on, get better at, and overall I think he's probably going to be a top 10 point. I think he's already a top 10 point guard, but he could probably creep into the elite level if he could improve his shooting.
I'm not sure if he's going to improve his shooting. I did see some improvement in his jump shot technique. Like he would jump more this year than I've seen him in years past, and that was something I was criticizing before he got drafted. But I have a question for you. Which player or which contract is the better deal? Kemba for 12 per year or Rubio for 14?
Oh man, that's a really good question. So the difference between both their contracts per year is about 2 million, and in this 2 million, I'm getting for this 2 million extra, I'm getting Ricky Rubio, who was leading the steals last year, has a phenomenal passing ability, and is an elite defender. I just think that the kind of court vision and the passing ability that Ricky Rubio has is something that cannot really be taught. I'm hopeful he can learn how to shoot better, but even if he doesn't, if you surround him with enough shooters and you know just let him do his thing, I think overall you can get a lot more production. Just based on all this, I think Ricky Rubio was the better asset, and I would have him for that extra 2 million. What do you think?
Man, I'm gonna go with the cheaper option, but I'm not uh, completely happy with my answer just because I do like Rubio and I do appreciate his passing. I just I'm an economics major, so I want to save money where I can, and I think I'd rather go with the cheaper player who's a better scorer and who who can make really clutch shots, as you saw in his first game this year. But let's go on to the other guard who got another extension, and that's Alec Burks of the Utah Jazz. And this one, I'll be honest with you, I did not see this coming. This was a $42 million contract over 4 years. I don't think he was worth it. But let me ask you, do you think this is fair? Do you think he deserves more or less?
Yeah, this is certainly one of the more interesting ones. Utah Jazz is a team full of young talent, and I think I like their coach, and I think they're trying to figure things out. Is this a good investment or not? I'm gonna go with no, just because I don't really see a bigger skill set with Alec Burks. He's a good scorer. I think he had like what 14 points coming off the bench last year. Um, their team has a lot of rotation. Like Gordon Hayward can play the two or the three. Dante Exum can play the one or the two. Alec Burks can play the two. So I think the positive is they had some cap space, and if this is a guy that they thought could fit in the plans for the future, I think they did a good job. But this is something that not necessarily really pleases me, and so I would probably say they could have signed him for less.
I completely agree. I think the Jazz overpaid for this. Uh, and nothing against Alec Burks. I think he's an underrated player overall, but this contract makes him look like he's a lot better. As you said earlier, when we were talking about Klay Thompson, there are not that many great shooting guards in the league. It is a scarce position in the last 5 years or so. So I understand where the Jazz are coming from, but I don't. What I don't understand is why didn't they just wait until after the year, see what the market value dictates. I doubt it was going to be over what they're paying him now, and that's my biggest issue with this contract is they should have waited and see what the market dictated.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. They could have just waited and probably got a better deal out of this.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we talked about all the guards that got paid in the last week or so, and now we're going to talk about the big men. Let's talk about the guy who got paid first or second. I'm not really sure, but I think it was first, and that's Nikola Vucevic. He got $54 million over 4 years. That's about 13.3 per year. That is a lot of money, and I understand why he's getting paid that much. Big men tend to get bigger bucks than the guards, as you'll see when we talk about the other two guys too. I just not sold on him getting this much money because, again, I don't know why the Magic couldn't have waited and see what the market dictated. I'm not sure if he was going to get more than this. If they thought that he was going to get the max amount of money, then yeah, they saved about 2 million per year, 1.7. But I'm not confident that he was going to get a max amount of money. So Anhad, what do you think? Do you think he deserves this amount of money, or do you think he should have gotten less?
Uh, the Orlando Magic franchise has a very small payroll right now. They're at around 59 million, and next year it's way less. It's in 20s or 30s. What that means is they have room to spend. They also have a lot of young talent who's not going to get renewed contracts for the next 3-4 years, like Alfred Payton and Victor Oladipo and Aaron Gordon. So money wise, they've looked good. I personally feel that Vucevic is one of the more underrated centers. To be honest, he puts in the work, good production, good on the boards, gets decent amount of points, and I think he's actually an underrated player. So I have no problems with him getting this much amount of money, and I think it just goes to show that the Magic are content with some of the pieces that they have, and he's part of their future plans, and it just makes me excited. It's excited that they're willing to retain this piece and get all the young talent around him build up, and this team's gonna look good in the future. So I think it's money well deserved.
So you think he actually deserved that much money? You thought it was a fair contract?
Yeah, I think it's a fair contract. I think, as I said, I think he's an underrated player, and they have cap space. When you have room to spend and you have a player that you like, it's not necessarily does he deserve it or not. I mean, you can obviously talk about it whether the player's getting way too much money than he deserves or way less than what he deserves, but a few million up and down when you have that much of flexibility in your cap limit, I personally feel there's no problem with it because I respect his talent.
I respect his talent too, and I think he's an underrated player. I think he should have gotten maybe about 10 per year. This does actually limit them in how much they could spend on Tobias Harris, And as you may have heard, the Magic Orlando Magic did not agree with Tobias Harris on a contract, which we'll go into further detail later in the podcast. But let's move on to the other big men that got paid this last week, and we're going to start with Kenneth Faried, who got a $60 million contract for 5 years. So not bad. Would you say that this is a fair contract, or do you think that he should have got paid more?
One of the problems that I have in assessing this contract is I don't necessarily know the direction in which Denver as a franchise is going. And I just don't know what identity do they have right now. A couple of years ago, when they were in the playoffs, they were looking like a great team. After which they decided to fire George Karl. At that time, I saw a group of players who had a distinct style of play in which all the pieces fit together. Kenneth Faried, no doubt, is a very talented player, and he does. I think he does deserve the money, but I where's Denver going with this? What are they trying to build around? What's their future plans? I don't have a clear picture of that, and that's where I question this whether they had to sign him or they could have used this much money on someone else.
I'm kind of torn on this. I wasn't expecting it because there were reports that the coaching staff wasn't in love with Kenneth Faried, and they didn't see him as a traditional power forward, so that's why they weren't in love with him. And then a year later, you see him getting a 5-year extension. So I'm a little bit surprised on that front. That being said, I think Kenneth Faried is just I mean, he lives up to the name. He's a manimal. He has a lot of energy, and I don't have a problem with this contract. Uh, you know, when you see guys like Chris Humphries getting 10 million per year, and this guy is getting just tad over a bit more than that, then I'm not going to be complaining much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I completely agree. When you compare what he's getting to what some of the other power forwards are getting, I think it's a great deal.
So that moves us to the last contract we're going to talk about, and that's Anderson Varejao, who got 30 million for 3 years, and the third option. There's an option on the third year, and it's a team option. So this is an interesting contract. I think it's fair. Anhad, do you have any thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I think it's fair because it's. I think if there was any center who was in his position, he would have been signed because Cleveland certainly want to win. It's a team that 10 new players this season in their franchise, and they're trying to just see how things go with this new big three that they have. Uh, you know, Anderson Virgil was a phenomenal player. He's a double double machine, getting double doubles almost every night. When he played. So he played with LeBron when he was in Cleveland in his first stint. Certainly knows the team, the city, so knows LeBron in and out. So it's good to have familiar faces, good to have some constant when everything else is so dynamic. So uh, he had to be there. Is 10 million fair for him? I think what he brings to the table is fine. It's a shorter deal, so I don't have too many problems with this. You can talk about the big guys who will be becoming free agents in the next summer, and whether teams should have kept some cap space if they could sign them. I don't know if that's in Miami's plans, but that's a different discussion. But as far as Virgil goes, I think he's the right guy to have in that situation. And if that's how much they had to pay to keep him, I think that's fine.
I mean, 10 million per year is not bad at all for a guy like Anderson, and he led the league in rebounding before he got hurt a few years ago. So I have no issue with this contract. My only thing is he the best fit for Cleveland? Because with Kevin Love there, it would be nice to have a shot blocking big, like Larry Sanders or someone like that. And Anderson Varejao is not known for his blocking. He's known for his rebounding, which is good, and Kevin Love can rebound the heck out of the ball. But I mean, I think defense is this team's biggest issue, and Anderson does help in that regard. I just think they could have saved their money for maybe a shot blocking big. Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, but I think a lot of their decisions were cater to what they can do in the near future. And I think from that perspective, they just had to lock him down for the next couple of years, and that's I think what they ended up doing.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, LeBron loves him and Cleveland loves him. He's a hardworking guy. He deserves the money, and I'm a fan of this guy. Anyways, let's go on to the players that did not get a new contract or extension in the last week, and guys who are going to become restricted free agents at the end of the year. Let's start with Kawhi Leonard, who was asking for the max amount of money, and the Spurs were not willing to give it to him. They wanted to see what the market dictated, Kawhi's Leonard said that the market had already dictated that Kawhi deserves a max contract. And he did win Finals MVP. So do you think he deserves a max contract?
Well, this is a tough question for me. I'm a Spurs fan, and I would love to see Kawhi at our franchise for till he stops playing. I love him. Fills up the stat sheet. Finals MVP, as you said. Does he deserve the max money or not? That's a very good question. I think it's fair to say he deserves whatever the market is going to offer, and I think the Spurs did a smart move. It's not a bad idea to wait and see because he's going to be a restricted free agent, which means that any offer that he gets from a different franchise, they can match it and still retain his services. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year, and I'm confident that whatever offer Kawhi gets, the Spurs are going to match it.
Okay, that was the next question I was going to ask you. If he was going to stay, and I'm going to ask you about this for all the rest of the players too. So let's move on, and we're going to go with Tristan Thompson. The Cavs just gave Anderson a longer contract. They don't necessarily need Tristan Thompson, and Tristan Thompson is a very good player. He could get more money elsewhere. Do you think he's going to stay in Cleveland after this year?
I think Cleveland do have certain flexibility when it comes to the cap space because they will have to re-sign a lot of players. Tristan Thompson is making 5 million, and he's a good player. I like him. I'm not gonna lie. It honestly, it just we're gonna figure out the whole offense this year, how Tristan Thompson fits in this team, and this is his contract year, so it's very hard to put a number on what Tristan Thompson deserves as of now, and it's honestly gonna come out as a product of how the Cleveland Cavaliers value his contribution as part of their future plans. And yeah, I think I'm very undecided on this one, and I think it's just gonna come down to Cleveland Cavaliers seeing him as a future piece in their puzzle or not.
I think Cleveland would want to keep him because he is a good player, and so far in these two games he has played well. That being said, I feel that another team will come in and pay more than what Cleveland is willing to offer because Cleveland doesn't really need a power forward when you have uh, Anderson and when you have Kevin Love. Kevin Love is going to eat up all those minutes at power forward, and that's what you want when you're paying when you have Kevin Love. You know, so let's see what happens, but my guess is that he won't stay. Let's go on to Jimmy Butler, who quote said, "I want to bet on myself." The Bulls and him did not reach an agreement this year. I do think the Bulls will match what they can for Jimmy Butler. They do have some restrictions in terms of how much they could spend because they gave a lot of money to Derrick Rose and to Paul Gasol and Joakim Noah. They do still have enough for Butler, but Anhad, do you think Jimmy Butler will stay next year as a Bull?
Before I answer that question, I want to say one thing that there's a category of players like Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard. Um, it, these guys fill up the stat sheet, give their 100% every night. Aren't necessarily the flashiest players out there, but their productivity is very very important to the team. In a way, some of these players are underrated because the thunder and the spotlight is still it's stolen by somebody else who's going into the highlight reel night in night out. I think Jimmy Butler is very precious to this organization. He brings in um, a lot of productivity in every category, and it's a guy that he plays a lot of minutes too. Has got insane amount of stamina, and I think someone that is appreciated by everyone in the franchise. So if I'm the Chicago Bulls franchise, I would want to keep him, and I think he's gonna stay.
One thing to make a point of is that Jimmy Butler is a great defender against LeBron. I mean, no one can stop LeBron, but he does as good a job as anyone can in the league. And the Bulls are always going to have to face the Cavaliers, if they want to make it past into the finals, because the Cavaliers are stacked, and this Bulls team, relies on defense. And if they could slow LeBron, they need to have guys that could slow him down, and one of that guys is Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, for next year they're currently at about 61 million, so they do have some money to work around with. Now, I don't think Jimmy Butler's expecting a max deal. I don't know what he's expecting, to be honest, because I don't know the guy, but I don't think he's hoping for a max deal. So if it's something to work around with between 12 and 15, if that's what he expects, I think him and Bulls could negotiate, because I really do think this is a good thing going on. And as you mentioned that he's going to have to guard guys like LeBron, Carmelo, and that could be a make or break as far as getting to the finals in the East is concerned.
We're a little bit short on time, so we're going to go over the last five guys we have to talk about, and I'm just going to ask you if they're going to stay or not. So first one is Reggie Jackson. He believes that he's a starter in this league. Do you think he's going to leave OKC? Yes or no?
It really depends what he means. If he's a starter, does he want starter like money, or does he actually want to start? Because I think if Russell Westbrook can play the two, Reggie Jackson as a good point guard that can actually start in the OKC lineup consistently. Next year, OKC have around 64 million on the books, so they do have room to sign him, but they might also need some money to sign some of their younger guys. So will he stay or not? Uh, it's just a shot in the dark, isn't it? As of now, I'm going to say no, because there's always a tendency that these guys, the backup point guards, they do so well that a developing team or a team contending team comes in and gets them, like Bledsoe and others. So I think some team's gonna come in, give him a big contract, and he's gonna go.
Yeah, I don't know how big of a contract he's going to get, but I do think he's going to leave, and I don't think OKC wants to match. The next player we have to talk about is Brandon Knight. I'm going to say that he's going to leave because Milwaukee's going to have a bad record this year. They could get Mude, they could get another point guard in this year's draft class. So I'm going to say that Brandon Knight leaves. What about you?
Yeah, I think I agree. Yeah, nothing more to add to that.
Let's talk about Ennis Cantor. This guy was the third pick in the draft a few years ago, and I'm gonna say that he actually leaves because they have Rudy Gobert. So, I think they like him more because of his defense, and Ennis Cantor can't play defense. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they're just trying to figure things out this year. I have a lot of hope in this Utah Jazz team. If it was up to me to guess, I think they're gonna keep him simply because him and Favors have played for a while. They understand each other, and the coach is trying to. The coach is very, very defense oriented. So what you said might factor in, but he's been there. It's a work in progress, and we'll get a clearer picture at the end of the season.
Thomas Robinson. Do you think he's gonna stay or no? No.
No.
Yeah, I really don't think he's gonna stay. I don't think the Blazers are in love with him, and he's been a disappointment on numerous teams so far. Tobias Harris. The Orlando Magic wanted to pay Vucevic, and they wanted to pay Channing Frye. Channing Frye got 8 million per year, and they have Aaron Gordon as the power forward of the future. So I'm not sure there's a spot for Tobias Harris on this Magic team. So I'm going to say he leaves after this year.
I'm gonna say he stays just because they have a lot of flexibility with how they can spend their money. I'm actually a big fan of Tobias Harris. I think he can ball, he can play. He's a tough guy, and I think you could really use him on the roster. So yeah, I think he's gonna stay.
Well, that about does it for Kill the Clock. We hope you enjoyed this special edition on contract extensions. And join us in a week when we talk about the first 2 weeks of this NBA season.
Yeah. Peace out, guys. Have fun. Stay safe.